Hey guys, I just learned something pretty alarming, so I figured I'd share it. This applies to a lot of people, but I'm gonna just talk about how it applies to people with the neurological disease ME. And according to the World Health Organization, ME, I guess, is a neurological disease. So really quick, I'm just looking at a brain while I do this because I'm bored. I'm gonna point some stuff out that is relevant to what I'm speaking about. But okay, so I've gotten nowhere with medical treatment for what's going on with me. I was directed by my primary care provider to go into the field of molecular medicine to seek treatment because he said what's going on is so unbelievably complex. So I did that. I found an MD PhD at a molecular clinic in Nevada. I was able to see him. He specializes in the treatment of ME. That's pretty much all he does. And his name is Dr. Kenny Demoliere. I've seen him on a lot of videos like MECFS Alert. And since I know a little bit of sciencey stuff from school and whatnot, I was able to talk to him for a long time at the appointment. And he told me all kinds of things that were crazy. I had no idea about. One thing being he has found in his patients, really common, and really quick, I have a bunch of books by Dr. Horowitz, the Lyme doctor. He's observed this too in his patients. So not just ME, Lyme, this applies to, and other chronic illness. And what the problem is quinolinic acid is really, really high in us apparently. Many things can elevate it. I believe one thing is inflammatory cytokines or pro-inflammatory cytokines being out of control. So if you guys know what this is, sorry for boring you at this point, but quinolinic acid does a lot of things. It can evidence that it can bring serotonin down. It's really confusing, but the main thing is it's an Nmda receptor or NMDAR agonist, which is really bad news. So what's that doing? It's just agonizing NMDA receptors, which are a special type of receptor. They have things to do with the excitatory amino acid glutamate, which is a neurotransmitter used in the nervous system. They're involved in neuroplasticity. It's a really complex receptor. It's like double gated, and I'm not going to go into that. But the whole point of this is I'm going to go into 4 parts. First part, evidence for glutamate dysfunction because NMDA is being agonized. So too much extracellular glutamate, and not cool. And I've been researching this after he told me about it, reading journals and stuff, and digging out my old textbooks. And so first thing is levels of glutamate seem to be too high sometimes when quinolinic acid is too high. So what's that mean? It can result in really bad mood problems. Glutamate has been proven to be very involved in depression. I won't go into it too technically, but yeah, and another thing that can make it too high is an endogenous astrocyte pathology, but they kind of govern it and suck it back up out of the synapse and stuff. That's an astrocyte right there. But I'm not going to go into that. So, next thing. When glutamate gets really high, it starts having a property or doing something in which they call glutamate excitotoxicity. So it becomes a neurotoxin when it gets so unbelievably high. And one thing it does, I believe, is it lets so much calcium in to the NMDA receptor. It triggers apoptosis, which is programmed cell death, so it kills the neurons. I guess it can kill astrocytes too. So that's really disturbing. This mechanism is also involved in neurodegenerative diseases such as HD, Parkinson's, ALS, so on and so forth. Those are insanely complex, but this is just one little thing that can be involved. And what does it feel like when this happens? He told me basically you can experience dissociative symptoms, and I have before, and this was pretty elucidating. So you get disassociation, and you can get the 2 kind of subtypes, which are derealization and depersonalization. It's where you feel really spacey, dreamlike. Nothing feels real. You feel detached, and it can be alarming and scary. It feels like you're in a dream, basically. Conventional psychiatry can be really awesome and just really on the ball, but some guys, they don't know like a lot of neuroscience stuff. They're kind of old school and they treat the brain as a black box. They don't go in there and try to fix stuff. They modify what comes out of it. And I've seen this. You guys probably have experienced this a little bit. But when you say you're experiencing those symptoms rather than them thinking, oh, it's just quinolinic acid being too high, they'll say, oh, you've gone into the territory of psychotic depression or borderline personality disorder, according to the DSM-5, because that's only when those things really occur a lot, or even a psychotic disorder. When in reality, it's just quinolinic acid having neurotoxic effects manifesting these psychiatric symptoms. So that's freaky. Okay, next up, you don't have to have a neurodegenerative disease to get neurodegeneration. Like a lot of these books on depression have found gross morphological changes from glutamate excitotoxicity, up to like 20% shrinkage in the hippocampus, even though some of that can be mediated by glucocorticoids. But in the cortex and other places, a lot of evidence for neuronal death. An astrocyte death, again, this is an astrocyte. Here's a pyramid neuron. Here's an oligodendrocyte, which is involved in myelination. And yeah, so they're finding it's killing neurons and astrocytes, and then it has a runaway effect because as astrocytes get killed, a big job they do is kind of govern glutamate and control it and take it back up, and that can make the problem worse. I want to share a fact that's really interesting about this. Speaking of glutamate excitotoxicity, and before I share it, as these things get killed, they have found evidence that BDNF gets lower. Brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is involved in like keeping synapses healthy, neurons healthy, growing stuff, neuroplasticity. It's extremely involved in mood disorders. So basically, there's a connection between high quinolinic acid and BDNF getting dropped down and lowered. And there can even be evidence for dysregulation of the mTOR pathway, but that's too technical for now. Last part. I want to share this from Wikipedia. In normal cell conditions, astrocytes in the neuron will provide a glutamate-glutamine cycle, which results in the reuptake of glutamate from the synapse into the presynaptic cell to be recycled, keeping glutamate from accumulating to lethal levels inside the synapse. At high concentrations, quinolinic acid inhibits glutamine synthase, a critical enzyme in the glutamate-glutamine cycle. In addition, it can also promote glutamate release and block its reuptake by astrocytes. All three of these actions result in increased levels of glutamate activity that could be neurotoxic. So that's there's a lot going on here, but it's like a runaway effect. As it happens, it can just make itself get worse and worse and worse. And this is not cool. So ways to bring it down, I'll make a video about that. Bye.